Toxic shame is this maniacal reality around self-disgust and self-hatred that I believe is the cause of all crimes, of all addiction, of all self-destruction, of all family dysfunction. Toxic shame is the precursor to addiction, to self-destruction, to dysfunctional families. Toxic shame truly is this unbelievable force in human beings that is the unseen hand that creates mass murderers, that creates psychopaths, that creates sociopaths. And you may be thinking to yourself, I haven't ever heard this terminology before. It's out there. Definitely something to research. One of my favorite books on it is by a guy named John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. Just changed my life. But in essence, toxic shame is the reason why everything goes wrong in the world when it comes to the human condition. And you might be thinking, Paul, you're being a little ridiculous. Let me continue to explain from my own story. Toxic shame is something that's put into people. It's violently put into people through behaviors, through actions, through words, through emotional destruction. And ultimately, the message of it is you are worthless. You are a worm. You have no value to the world. You are simply something to be despised. That's how I always felt. Every day of my life. That's what I've felt. Is this level of self-disgust on a subconscious level. Because by the time I started unpacking this in my later 20s, I didn't even see that I felt this way towards myself. It was so ingrained in my body and in my microfascia of my musculature, where shame is stored physically, that I didn't understand. I just did not understand how much this impacted my decision making, how much this impacted me. Toxic shame, as I said earlier, is the precursor to almost every single issue in the human condition. Toxic shame is the reason why people do awful things to other human beings and awful things to themselves. Toxic shame is the source of the act in, act out cycle. And there's a couple different ways toxic shame can go. Toxic shame can drive you to destroy yourself through overeating or drug addiction or alcoholism or you name it, any other plethora of behaviors that can destroy the human condition, or it can drive you to destroy other people. And ultimately, toxic shame, in my estimation, from what I've seen, becomes the driver to destroy other people when you attach a victim mindset to it, where everything else in your life is everybody else's fault, not yours. You're not responsible. It's not up to you. You're not. It couldn't be your fault, right? When you tie toxic shame towards oneself with being a victim, the only thing left to do is act that out on other people. You either act toxic shame in towards yourself and the relationships around you, or you act it out onto others to destroy others. As the underlying precursor to all, I guess you could say, all awful things about humanity, toxic shame is a state of being where one despises oneself and truly hates oneself to the point where they're no longer giving themselves the permission to be human. How does this play out? Well, in the book, Healing the Shame That Binds You, there's an unbelievable example of this. And when I first read this, it gave me such clarity on why I'm behaving the way that I'm behaving because of what had been done to me and how I needed to change rapidly or my behaviors could turn deadly. And what I mean by that is there's this guy that was a serial killer, and he had a very specific way of killing people. I'm not going to get into it. You want to read the book, you can go for it, but it is pretty dastardly. And I don't want to share data like that on this channel. Try to keep it as clean as possible from heinous acts. But ultimately, what was eventually discovered was that this guy was molested by his mother while his dad cut up meat in the kitchen as a butcher. And that did something to him in this way where he then began to act that out. But ultimately, it all started way back there in the beginning of his life when shameful acts were put into him as a human being, and he carried that toxic shame forward into life and then did a bunch of evil things because of it. That's what I see over and over and over and over again, is that there are shameful things done to people, and then because of those shameful things, on a long time horizon, they then contaminate that person's soul to the point where they act that out. And I was almost one of those people. I was very close to being that person. I was very close. So we're going to get into that after I get through a bunch of these different videos to talk about what my childhood put into me that I had to overcome. There are so many things that were put into me in regards to emotional and mental dysfunction. It's kind of astonishing. And so toxic shame really is this level of self-hatred that transcends even my own understanding at times. The way it would manifest in my life is I wouldn't look in the mirror at myself. I wouldn't connect to myself at all. I saw no value in myself. I took transient jobs I didn't care about my impact on the world at all. Didn't really, it was just like on to the next thing. But in this way where then I would resent the job and I'd resent the people that I worked with, and I would resent all of those things, and then I would act out my hatred for authority on my bosses and on people that were in charge of me. I mean, I had so much of that going on in my life. And so that's how I maniacally acted my toxic shame out in my professional life. But in my private life, I spent so many years of my life, man, in dark bedrooms, like not wanting to be around light. I'd have the shades closed. I'd have everything closed and isolative. I wouldn't let people really know me. I'd let them know the identity of me that I had created for them to be able to accept me. I wouldn't let them connect to the authentic me. No way, no chance, no how. Not gonna happen. This false self is the essence of what toxic shame creates. And a lot of us are fascinated by crime dramas and things that happen. You say, how did this person do this? Is truly the underlying question when you look at all of this criminal stuff that happens. And the answer is toxic shame is driving them to either destroy themselves or destroy others. I'm going to repeat that. toxic shame is driving them to either destroy themselves or destroy others. This internal self-deprecation, self-hatred. The dialogue of that for me didn't exist until I was in my late 30s. I wasn't even aware of it until my late 30s. Didn't even see it existing until my late 30s. And still, I started to hear the echoes of my soul crying out to be heard and to be validated and to be understood. I had spent so many years of my life fueled by this one thing. And the idea and the essence of it is, I need to be ashamed of my very existence. I need to be ashamed of the fact that I exist. The fact that I am part of the human race is a stain upon society. The fact that I breathe the air is truly disgusting to life itself. That's how I felt towards myself. And you wonder, at least I wonder, how does somebody like that exist in a world and not take that out on other people? If you have that level of maniacal self-hatred and self-loathing and disgust for oneself, let me tell you, there's only two different things that can happen with that. You're either going to act that in or you're going to act that out. It's just that simple. And I'm so grateful I found a moral compass and a code of ethics early in my life that I have done my best to lead my life by. And I've done a miserable job most of the time, but every day I still try to do my best to lead my life by this code of ethics. Because if I had not found those things, I cannot imagine the person that I would have been. Can't even imagine it. I do know I would have been on the news. And I would have been on the news for a very brief, interview. I'm telling you that much. That's an absolute fact. I would have been on the news for a very brief time. And then my name would have died with that. That would have been it. And I had to uncover this level of toxic shame, see it for what it was, and actually find a way to accept myself in spite of it. I had to take correct and right actions to take care of myself, to be able to alleviate that level of self-disgust. Took me years to do. And I had to connect with other people. I had to be seen by other people. I had to be in an environment where other people saw the value of me. Without that, I would have been lost. I would have been lost to addiction and self-destruction. I am 100% certain. I didn't want to leave this life the way I came into it, though. I wanted to find a way to truly be myself, the very one that I am, and get back to the essence of me. And it took years and years of continual working on my soul to get me whole, for me to become the person I am today. Took decades of work. This person was built, that's talking to this lens right now, that's talking to you right now. This person was built. I was created and formed in destruction and in suffering and in dysfunction. And I spent decades of my life building the person I am now so that I could sit in this chair and share this message with you that you don't have to let the past control your future. The first couple chapters of your life were written. You get to decide what the rest of the book's going to be. You get to decide. And you can blame other people, and you can be a victim, and you can do all these things with all the time and energy of your life. And I'm here to tell you that all that's going to do is leave you without any essence of who you are. Because it may not have been your fault that whatever happened to you screwed you up, and it gave you an incredible amount of toxic shame towards yourself. But it is your responsibility to deal with it. Period. End of story. It's your responsibility, just like it was my responsibility, to deal with it in a way that enhances society. Someday, this video is going to be viewed by my children's children's children, if the internet is around that long. Because if it's on the internet, it's forever. And first and foremost, I want to say I love you, my children's children's children. Let's start there. But also, you were worth it. You were worth it. Me suffering and struggling and scratching and clawing to be able to do everything in my power to be free of where I came from. You were worth it. You were worth it. All of the suffering and the pain that I've been through in my life, I would do it all again if it meant that I got to leave a legacy behind. And I got to be a survivor, not a victim. And I got to take ownership and control over my life, where I was no longer held captive by what happened, but I have become a person that has mastered what happened to me and the effects of what happened to me. If you're out there listening to this, there's an incredible life ahead of you that you can't see yet. You can't even see it, but it's there. And it's worth the work. Find community, find hope, and begin to take responsibility for your life, because you only get one. You only get one life. And if you want to give your life away to fleeting emotions and rage and malice, I'm here to tell you there is a better way. And your life is worth more than that.